Yay!
Yay! We are on the interwebs. What's happening,
Oh,
guys?
cool. We are live. Good. Welcome, peoples, to the stream. Not that there's any of you here right now, but you will be later, so that's super cool. Yeah, I'm Max. I don't know where I'm at on the screen, but with
Far
me
left.
are Tony and Nick. Say hi, guys.
Hi, everybody.
Yeah. And we're just hanging out here. We'll answer questions if anyone has any. But if not, we're just gonna keep doing what we were doing before during sound check.
Yeah. Just chatting away, man.
Pretty much. Yeah, and drinking tea and trying to figure out our not hostile but super friendly takeover of British YouTube.
Wait, us? Yeah, you're right. We are. We're about to. I'm also randomly finding new things in OBS, so that's going to be fun too. But we're still streaming, so it's fun.
Oh, cool. Hey, whatever, man. We made it, and that's all that matters.
We made it. But yes, we are going to start moving into the British D&D. Well, the British audience. Maybe not the D&D audience. But...
the British Adult Swim YouTube channel audience? I mean, I know it's just niche.
just,
but perhaps...
just a little bit.
Yeah. So did you actually find Frisky Dingo, like, references and clips on the Adult Swim UK? Okay. Maybe we should start tagging them.
152,000 views 5 years ago. The best of Killface.
I mean...
11,000 6 months ago. That's actually okay. That's recent/relevant.
It ain't nothing.
I mean,
11,000 views in 6 months. That's more than we get.
I was gonna say that's more than any one of our videos. I think.
Enjoy some of your favorite. I'm trying to see. Operation What is what it's named. How long is it? I'm trying to see how long this is, but I can't. Oh, 3 minutes.
That sounds about right.
Let's see. What's this one? Play all. Meet Killface, meet Awesome. Oh, these are like... This looks like it's like... Because they're all 11 minutes. This looks like it's like a quarter of the time. Like even more rundown of the clips. And it's like very quickly. Meet Killface, meet Awesome X. Like of all the episodes, they're even more condensed. That's a playlist.
Okay.
I don't see views on that one because it's a playlist, but... The Holocaust, that was great. Let's not talk about that one.
Oh, Tequil.
That's 23,000 views 5 years ago. That makes sense.
Sweet. Well, I'm glad to see that anti-Semitism's on the rise.
Oh, yes.
Oh, boy.
Careful, Max wouldn't want the channel to get political.
Hey, whatever. Everyone can remember my pitch about like how we could blow the channel up, but all you guys had your morals and didn't want to. So... That's fine.
Yeah, there's a few like within the last few months that have several thousand views. So,
well, maybe we'll have to start.
All of our games Frisky Dingo references are causing a Frisky Dingo renaissance. That's the theory I'm running with.
Yes,
dude, I like that idea.
So season 3 can get made, or at least like an episode that resolves the storyline with Killface's parents.
I know. I think I watched like the last 2 episodes of season 2. I was like, how does it end? Because I usually go to sleep to it and just keep it running, and whatever I come on, but I haven't seen that in a while. And I was like, oh yeah, his mom comes down, and he's like, Mother, what are you doing here?
Yeah.
Why aren't you wearing any pants, Barnaby?
Yeah. Why are you naked?
Which we never knew for two whole seasons until the last like little bit that he's actually naked. He seems like it, but we just kind of accepted that fact. And so did everyone else on the Earth. So it was very interesting.
I mean, it's a kind of a villain move, right? Be like mostly naked, I guess. I don't know.
Is it?
I don't know. Sure. Yes. Why not?
I say mostly naked or overly clothed. It's one of the two.
Oh, all right.
Depends on which aspect of society the villain is specifically supposed to make you not like.
That's fair too.
In this point, would it be the nude the nudists, the bodybuilders.
Well, no, because people who are less clothed, well, in the case of
Will
Frisky
enjoy
Dingo,
it.
it's an intentional comedic juxtaposition. I hope that you can hear me over the sound of my asshole pets.
Yeah, because birds suck, Nick.
Yeah, they kind of do. Love them anyway, but yeah, they suck. No, just it's an intentional comedic juxtaposition in Frisky Dingo because, like, the type of villain that Killface is modeled after is supposed to make you a little bit sexually uncomfortable, and
Okay.
so that's like a means for you to like feel uneasy in the presence of this villain. It's a visual shorthand. I don't know if that's actually true. I just like making up my own allegories and things.
Well,
I think it's great.
what was Lionel Lysanthier?
Oh,
Was he
yeah,
naked or was he fully clothed?
he was fully clothed at all times.
Okay.
He's supposed to make you hate the upper classes.
Gotcha.
I'm leaning into the fuck you dad aspect of hating Lionel. That's kind of, endemic to it. But yeah, you're also supposed to hate the upper classes who are the dad of society, who tell you, you can't go out and do things and have this. You can't have universal health care until you finish your capitalism vegetables. So
that
yeah,
makes
that's what I'm doing.
Will there be a naked villain in our new campaign?
Yes,
Sweet.
There you go.
it will
There
be
you
played
go.
by me.
And
in the flesh.
we all look forward to it. So was Lionel Lysanther then? Is he a never nude? Was he always clothed?
He came out of the womb clothed.
In like coattails.
Yeah.
I like it.
Nobody's seen him naked. Nobody.
Oh, did you?
He's never seen himself naked.
Did you write up or have any thoughts on Jastian's mother?
Oh yeah.
I had some thoughts on it. Honestly, they weren't terribly well developed. But I wanted to have an answer to that in case, that was the one thing that Jastian, yeah,
Yes.
that he wanted to know from his father before he died. It turned out instead he wanted to get a sick one-liner in. So
That's true. That's all he wanted.
Well, what did you have about Jastian's mom then? I mean, Ben's not even here, which is the beautiful part about all of this.
right.
We always just talk about Ben when he's not here.
He's just that captivating.
That's the stream today. We're going to talk about Ben when he's not
enchanting. I
here.
always get lost in his eyes. But no, it's I had expected to put an adventure hook there. So Jastian's mother, by necessity, is a human woman. She's dead, but it's complicated.
Oh, I think you mentioned that actually
in that
after
D&D
we ended.
sort of way.
I feel like you mentioned that after we ended, sort of that scenario a little bit.
Well, the nice thing I like about the way you tell stories and make games is that I would not put it past you to have us run into her or some thread of that story yet.
It could matter. It could still matter. You know how I love a giant multi-campaign crossover climax.
Oh, Jesus.
Yeah, it's who knows? Maybe that will matter someday.
Dude, how cool would that be, man? If you can Manuel of the Plains this and we can actually get like the equivalent of what happened, what they threw at you with all those notes.
God, yeah.
From
that
like
is by far the coolest thing. All right, so for those of you who are watching this later, I did what we call Manuel of the Plains. I've talked about this once or twice before. It's a great big sort of celebratory campaign that I did with my primary group that I've been playing with for well over a decade now.
That's right, we're his side piece.
Yeah. Well, my side game is also too hot for you. But
I love you so much, Nick.
I do my best. No, but if we could share an experience like that, like where if we could do like, a bunch of stories, a bunch of one-offs, and a bunch of characters with this with PeakD&D, and then like find a way to bring that all together and really blow it out, and get our audience in on it too. We were on our way to the first LayerCon. I was terribly inebriated for most of that drive, but I wasn't. Don't do drugs, kids. But Max, you asked me, you asked everybody, but my answer was this: what's like the coolest possible version of PeakD&D looks like to you? And that was my answer, and I was actually pretty happy with it because I kind of struggled a little bit to answer it. But if we could find a way to bring people together in a really fun, engaging gaming experience, akin to what, Max, you saw in the climax of Manuel of the Plains, that would be the coolest possible version of PeakD&D for me. So that's awesome. What I'm hoping for going forward.
Yeah, no, dude, it's cool. So for like the people, I was fortunate enough to like get invited to like the very end of Nick's primary group that he's speaking of. And, it was like this big Infinity Stone plot line. And basically it's like, how do we kill Thanos?
Almost literally that, yes.
Yeah, but like one of the things that his group, I forget if it was Beth who came, I don't remember who came up with the idea, but it was brilliant. And they, Nick loves to tug on heartstrings, and so they did a similar thing, and they wrote to or texted and got like pretty much everyone that,
me included.
Yeah, Tony, you participated, like all of the new.
Yes.
Yeah, like we all wrote down, and like from Nick, your entire history of like childhood games and people you've played with and people who've played with you.
You've got almost everyone I ever played Dungeons and Dragons with in on this.
And we wrote like, I forget what it said, like I concentrate on something like weakening Manuel or, whatever it was. But like,
something like that.
70 people wrote in and like sent little slips of paper so that like one of the friends could just like dump a box on like the mat. And it was super cool. Like that.
That was the coolest thing ever, and you guys rock. That was so freaking awesome.
Dude, I take zero credit. I just got to witness it and be there. But to that point, like, and I will say, Nick, like to like living your dream in a small way, like we do have people who watch all of our gameplay and like are engaged in it. Like I had the really great privilege to catch up with a friend when I was back home, and like we literally sat down and caught up over a 2-hour breakfast. And that dude loves the channel, and he was talking about like all sorts of stuff, and it was like super rad to sit across from Tom and be like, oh my god, dude, he fucking cares.
Like you know your shit.
Yeah.
No, that's so freaking cool to me. And hey, if you're one of those people who watches all of our stuff and you're watching this stream, because it's a thing we did, I just want to say thanks. And if this is the first time you've ever checked out one of our videos, thanks for checking it out.
Yeah.
It's just really, really cool to me to share these kinds of experiences with people. And I freaking love doing this. Yesterday we filmed the gameplay session. That's, pretty far ahead. The video won't be
what
out.
Are we, like 9 sessions ahead, I think?
Something like that, yeah. It's
10.
It's crazy because all the cool stuff that's happening we want to talk about, but you guys will have no context for it for weeks.
Until like March.
Yeah.
No, man, but it's really cool. I was looking forward to that gameplay session all week.
Awesome.
I was like, oh boy, it's almost Tuesday.
That's awesome. Well, and honestly, too, do you look forward to more of that kind of style play? Because we had way more of a role play session.
Oh yeah, we had a good one.
Watching back, it's always like, honestly, ends up being my favorites to edit.
Mm-hmm.
One, because it's easier, but two, because we're actually engaged. Like all 4 of us are engaged very well in character and like parsing everything out. So I think it's more like the most exciting, fun things to watch rather than
you're
combat.
right about that. So, now that you pointed out, I can't unsee the difference in those kinds of videos.
It's crazy.
Yeah, the combat, I mean, like everybody's acting in turns, and you guys are good players, so you're engaged and you're, paying attention.
Character and doing our thing, yeah.
But like we just find such a lovely flow.
We do.
When we're just doing this free form role play, when we're doing lots of RP, lots of talking to people, following threads, and investigating the scene of the crime, as it were. You guys and we seem to have a really nice like rhythm that we find. Everybody gets quips. Everybody gets to do like something in character. It's really neat.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, we try to give something for everyone, right? Like I know not everyone loves those types of sessions, and some people are in it for like the combat and the action. So like hopefully, like that's what I like about the game is like there's a good balance, and like all balances, right? Like sometimes that pendulum swings. Like we recorded, we're investigating a murder in chapter 2, and so like it was 3 hours with like 0 combat and all RP, and that is going to lead up to what I assume is going to be like 3 hours of a dungeon crawl. Or
yeah, we've got quite a dungeon ahead of us here.
Yeah,
it's always tricky about that, and it's hard to do in like a 90-minute video. But it's, there's so many different aspects to this game, and you really do want to spice it up, but I feel like, that doesn't mean like, don't be afraid to lean in on combat, role play, exploration, whichever of those is the right tool for the job that you're doing.
Yeah.
Like, don't be afraid to lean into that and go hard for a couple of sessions on something, just make it fun. Yeah.
Absolutely. And I think that comes down to engagement, because I could see yesterday's gameplay session played out by, several different groups, and some of those would be very boring. You know what I mean? Like, it's just the nature of like the gameplay group of just how they either engage or how they want to play. But like that could have been a very boring thing to do.
Or even like boring for lots of reasons, right? Because so many cooks in the kitchen. And I think that's one thing that's nice about a small group, right? Like, everybody gets their ideas kind of thrown out there, and like we don't get too terribly derailed. Like, dude, Tony, like we played that Pirates game, right? And like, how long did it? I mean, we sat for like an hour and a half trying to like figure out a plan, because so many of us had like different ideas that we were like throwing in there.
Yeah.
And like at a certain point, you just got to go, man.
You just got to do it.
Yeah.
I think that happens all the time with large groups in innumerable small ways. Like I can remember Max, one of Dave's games where it was the second edition one that Michelle and I first started playing with you guys on, where there were just so many different people like describing the idea they had to do while the party was in the woods, that like only one person actually met like the plot important person in the area, and the rest of us like didn't have weapons a lot later, because we didn't talk to that person. And it's just like
kind of like an MMO. Like you have your friends that have all the stuff already and are level 8, and like you're like, oh well, we're going out there. I forgot to go talk to him and him to get all my starting gear to actually go do that.
Or they don't want to watch the cutscenes.
Or they don't want to watch the cutscenes.
Yeah, that's the one I always ran into on MMOs when during the all 40 minutes I've played them.
Yes.
It's just like nobody else wants to watch the cutscenes. I'm like, well, there's story happening, guys. I don't know.
Yeah, and they're like voice acted. Except, no, I always like to watch the cutscenes, man.
Yeah, same. I do.
Because why not? You don't get a lot of them. They're like special little like treats, right?
Yeah,
right.
Yeah. At least I think so.
I don't play a lot of video games, but I do have to say that I haven't seen a video game that I like enjoy the story of, unfortunately. I just don't connect that well with video game stories. I follow them, but I'm just not like engaged to the point of intrigue with them.
Yeah, that's fair. I mean, I don't know if...
Drop your Steam handles in the chat, because I bet I could find you a video game story you'd love.
Maybe. And the one I love makes 0 sense, and that's Kingdom Hearts. But
that makes no sense at all.
But that's more of a it's just more of a flavor thing that, like, I don't care what story they told. It would be more of a flavor that I liked. So, but like Baldur's Gate, I guess both. I guess that's what I mean. Like, yeah, the world it's set in is more of my intrigue than the actual story that's being told. But like Baldur's Gate, I played through and I followed it, but I cannot tell you what happened in that storyline at all.
Wait, which one? In Baldur's Gate 1?
Yeah, the first one.
Oh man, you're that kid, and then you like got raised at Candlekeep, and then they
And
killed
then we
your
went to a
stepfather.
cobalt mine, and then we went
Yeah,
up the
there was
tower
some
and killed some
iron
I don't
shortage.
yeah, and
And Savarok.
I'm like, cool.
You know, I would argue that that is actually a flaw in the narrative. In the narrative of this game that I freaking love and has been a hugely formative part of my Dungeons and Dragons experience.
Okay.
Baldur's Gate 1 is not super engaging to. I don't think the story has some very cool parts I like about it. There's a lot I like about the story, but on a moment-to-moment basis,
Mhm.
I don't feel like those bits come close enough together.
Yeah.
And
That
especially
would make sense.
contrasted with the gameplay, which is really engaging on a moment-to-moment basis.
Yeah. I
So
really
when
like the
I-
mechanics.
Yeah, and it got better, I think, in later games, or I just got, or maybe something clicked in my mind that made the story like stick with me more. But I think it gets better in the sequel.
No, man, like I literally just got done finished playing a playthrough of Baldur's Gate over this last year
Yeah.
with a friend, and
Yeah.
like the story is not stellar, but I wonder if there isn't something more there with like the evolution of computer games and RPGs. Period.
Maybe.
Uh,
Skyrim never did it for me either. I still don't know how that ends.
yeah, the plot.
I don't think.
It's like an
Once
MMO.
again,
It's all
see,
over the
it's so
place.
interesting when you work in when you're telling a story with a game. This is something that I think about a lot. Obviously,
Yeah.
it's like the mechanical moment-to-moment gameplay in a lot of games seems to make a much stronger impression than the narrative.
Yeah.
And that's an extreme generalization. That's like a whole like continuum of games that do that better or worse. But I feel like, and you need both in a video game, right? It should be
Oh, yeah.
mechanically engaging to play. It should be fun on a moment-to-moment gameplay, nuts and bolts basis. But the best games will also leave you. They will affect you the way a story does. You'll get emotionally invested in places and characters and stuff that happens, and you'll want to see what happens next. And that's like there are exemplars of both those things in gaming. But I think much less common is a game that does both of those things very well.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, I mean that seems entirely fair,
Oh,
right?
sweet.
Like, 'cause-
Greg's watching us. He has a couple questions if you guys want to go that route.
oh, what's up,
Greg.
Greg? Yeah, man, let's answer some questions.
So with turns taking forever is the first one. Do you think it makes sense to lead less if that's what your character would do? I don't know.
Yeah, right.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, like there are some characters that makes a lot of sense for, but I don't. I think maybe like the absence of a leader is what the problem is in the scenario that Max and I were describing anyway, where just like everybody, like irrespective of whether their character is a leader or a follower, every character has like their thing, right? Like, so like everybody wants to do their thing, and sometimes they all want to do their thing at the same time, and then it's just cacophony. I don't know. That's the phenomenon that I think I was noticing with it, but sometimes pumping the brakes on that, that might help.
I think there's like, I think like once you start to have it could, the more you play the games, right? There's like an ebb and flow to like, all right, like we have hit the peak of ideation for this moment, and now there's going to be a point of diminishing returns where like, we can keep engaging in like analysis paralysis and like, oh, what if this? And like, oh, what if that? Oh, what if this? But
analysis paralysis. I like it.
But ultimately, believe me, I just stole that. I did not make it up. But ultimately, like taking a step, right? And like whatever that action is and dealing with those consequences, I think is like more fun and more engaging, like just keeping that momentum.
And maybe this is a D&D idea that we're having here, but like there should be like getting to the decision point, right? Achieving that is what moves things forward and prevents stuff from getting bogged down, right?
Yeah.
Like
Yeah.
the
Being
chaos
decisive.
of I'm doing this happens when someone definitively, that ends when a decision is reached.
Well, yeah, and especially in turn taking, like if someone reaches that decision, say, whoever's in the initiative first, or whoever, within the round finally makes a decision to do something, then it snowballs into, to something of reactionary. And that's not necessarily good or bad, but then it's like, oh, he did that, and now we're in this scenario. Like, now what can I do? And
like,
maybe that changes.
Encouraging decisiveness
seems
to be a thing worth pursuing at the table.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like,
It's funny,
just do it.
I was just about
the next people will figure it out.
to make like the analogy of like the lead domino tipping, and it reminded me of something you mentioned to me a couple weeks ago about chapter 2, but I've actually since forgotten what that was, other than like pay attention to when the dominoes start to fall.
Oh, right.
But-
yes.
But the
That was
dominoes,
a general theme for chapter 2, I think.
yeah, but they started to fall real quick.
Oh, just wait.
Oh, I'm sure. But that's good, because that will, like, as those dominoes fall, like that will create tension and stress, like amongst the NPCs and the characters and the party. So, nothing opens eyes and minds like desperation.
Yeah.
Right. And so when things get more dire, people might be a bit looser with their values or traditions
for
Yeah, that's an interesting point.
For sure.
Just how much pressure do you have to be under to compromise your values,
Yeah.
Max?
me
Max or
personally.
Tris?
Well, it's a question worth asking, I think. Once again, we're dropping, clever hints about things that you guys unfortunately won't see for a while yet. But chapter 2, that may end up being something of a theme.
Very nice.
Sacrificing values.
Well, just what would it take for you to change your mind?
Yeah, fair. Well, I look forward to seeing how that all unfolds. Circling back to Greg's question, the other analogy that jumped in my mind, Tony, as like a former basketball coach, was like, if the ball stops, like if you're on offense and the ball stops, like that's a good way for the defense to get the advantage, right? Like you want to keep the ball moving. So like similarly, when you get to those big choices of like, okay, what plot thread do we go investigate, or how do we proceed? I think that's a helpful analogy for the sports ball people, that like you want to keep the ball moving.
Yeah.
And sometimes any pass or any movement is better than none at all.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Agree. Yeah. Now I'm curious how I'll have to compromise my values, but we'll see.
Yeah, same.
Yeah.
Mino's values are, I don't know. I feel like he's still figuring them out to some extent, but certainly values creativity and independence and freedom. So I guess those would be the starting points, but
Yeah.
we'll see how that goes. Yeah.
Were there other Greg questions that we could tackle? I mean, I like your idea.
Have you guys played Far Cry 3? Because he said that's one of the ones that he's really enjoys as far as story is concerned.
Ah.
I don't know.
I have heard nothing but good things about Far Cry 3, but I have not actually played it.
Fair enough.
It's one of the Ubisoft sandbox games. It's really kind of an excellent exemplar of its genre. I've heard nothing but good things.
Well, there you go.
Yeah, no, I haven't played it. Like, as the resident graybeard of this group, like the first game that jumped to my mind in that conversation was Final Fantasy VII, because that was one of the first games that I played where like the story actually engaged me.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, interesting.
And I
think
would
I
say
have that downloaded on various different platforms, but I haven't actually played through it.
yeah. No, I mean,
But it's been on my list of things.
The Final Fantasy series has always been good at that balance I mentioned earlier. They have interesting stories, not always good, but often very interesting.
Okay. Yep.
And they also have really fun moment-to-moment gameplay for the most part.
Yeah. I will say that I have lately been playing Pathfinder Wrath of the Righteous. And I think that's done a good job of having engaging and challenging combat and interesting story, and like there's been joy and pleasure that I've found in both directions with that. That said, that Pathfinder system is a beast, and I thank you, Nick, for introducing the group to 3.5, because that is the only way that I have had any chance in that game to make any sense.
You're quite welcome. I certainly need no thanks for spreading my preferred edition of Dungeons and Dragons to another fun group.
The other thing I would say too, like just from my very minimal video game style, is like, because coming from Kingdom Hearts being one of my favorites, and like you said, as far as like intermittent gameplay, like on the moment to moment versus the storytelling, I would have to say that the games I've played, the more linear the game, the better I would like the story. Because I think Kingdom Hearts, as open world as it seems, it's very linear. And like once you go to a new world, then those cutscenes start happening and story starts coming out a lot more often. And it's not until you get to the end game that you jump around and nothing starts to cutscene. But as you're playing through the game, it's very linear in the sense of like wherever you go, something new and story-wise is happening. And even if you go backwards, something new and story-wise happens. Like it always has that a very good like cutscene sort of rhythm in that sense.
Yeah, well, I'm glad you said rhythm, because I like this, because I mean, so far in this first
like
bit of this
Skyrim is like
conversation,
you could go for months and not see anything.
which like to me is analogous to that analysis paralysis, right? Like where like there's not a lot of forward momentum, right? Things have stalled.
Yes.
And you know, the more linear the game, the more linear the story, the easier it is to keep that going.
Yep.
And it's striking that balance. I think that's why, Nick, the striking of the balance is so important.
Yep. Mm-hmm. And similarly, I think that's what we've always said about Nick being a DM, is that your pacing is immaculate.
That's something, that's another thing that a lot of video games like struggle with sometimes, is pacing.
Yeah.
And I don't know if that's just like, I know what pacing I like, and so that's the easiest one for me to create. But I always try to like keep the pace of interesting things. Like interesting things should be happening often, right? Like there should be new information, new loot to find, new experience to earn, like somewhere in the immediate vicinity most of the time. I think that just keeps a good like drive forward momentum, because the players always want to get to the interesting thing whose existence you have alluded to.
Yeah. I wonder too how much is on the players though.
I was gonna say,
right?
Skyrim, like that pace is up to you, man. Like if you want to keep going, you can, but if you get bogged down with all the side shit, like then you're, kind of stuck in a dead zone.
Yeah, you chase rabbits.
Still interesting and still fun. But story-wise,
exactly.
Not interesting and not necessarily fun and can't follow.
Yeah, Skyrim is one of those games that I would say is on very, very far to one side of that spectrum.
Oh, absolutely.
It does a good job with setting, but that's not the same thing as story, I don't think. I think agree. Like setting does a lot of the heavy lifting that I use story for in general.
Yep.
So like, here's this cool Viking land full of Viking stuff, and you can learn more about it by talking to X, Y, and Z and jumping down side quest rabbit holes. But, that's setting. That's not story, narrative. Hey, you're the Dragonborn, and now you have to yell at a dragon to death until it dies. And
Skyrim in a nutshell, everybody.
There's a big bad dragon who's doing a bad thing, but if you yell at him enough, he will stop doing the bad thing. Here's the story of Skyrim.
Maybe we could start doing shorts. We've talked about shorts, and like I actually just watched the honest trailers for Andor, which is fantastic. But if we could do like shorts, Nick short on his trailers for video games.
I mean, that
Or just
back
like-
to talking about Ben that's not here, but like his very long shorts of driving back from LayerCon. It's a similar kind of scenario, I guess.
No. Yes.
Nick is to video games as Ben is to musicals.
Fair.
I'm more of a short, and he's more of a video essay on what is wrong with musicals. He does,
But hilarious.
but
I
you
mean-
know, that is a hustle I can respect.
I like it though. That'd be great.
Yeah.
I mean,
yeah.
it could. Maybe that is something they're like formulating, like guide to narration, guide to DM narrative, but it's more of a, you know, play on like popular video games being not good at it and then you can kind of give 2 cents on how to fix it in your D&D sort of scenario. Because I think a lot of D&D players new ones might try to be a video game. You know what I mean? So there could be something there.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I was just thinking of like something short, like it would to like a 30-second synopsis of Skyrim, which like how many combined hours do we have in Skyrim right now?
Oh, a lot. Probably.
I don't need that kind of negativity in my life. Don't ask me how many Steam
All right.
hours I
No,
have
no
on
scary
Skyrim.
math. It's okay. We don't have to do any more scary math.
Oh,
But like, okay.
Ooh,
Or
that's-
are you looking it up right now?
yeah, I made the mistake of looking. and
Well,
then-
now, if you would be so kind.
I mean, now you have to.
all right.
Is it tens of thousands?
No,
Okay.
it's actually it's too much. Well, I have clocked on the Elder Scrolls V Skyrim 333.4 hours, and
But then you
on
have
the
the-
Elder Scrolls
yep,
Skyrim
yep.
Special Edition,
Yep.
I have logged an additional 319.4 hours.
And then on your
Dude.
Switch, do you have your Switch handy? Is it on your
no,
Switch?
no,
too?
no.
Okay.
I've only played it on PC. I haven't played console, so that's saving.
So, safe to say, upwards of our 1,000 hours of combined
Oh,
Skyrim.
absolutely.
And Ben's not even here.
Right.
If Nick could, I mean, you summarize that game in a sentence,
And
right?
it's the truth.
Less than 30 seconds. I remember, so I did fall down a Guild Wars 2. That is my one MMO rabbit hole
Yep.
to date.
Oh,
Yep.
And
I
I
think
can-
it was one, not two.
And I can remember, like, there's some command to like find out like how old your character was that I did for my oldest character.
Oh, interesting.
And that was like as close as I could. Yeah, it was just like gameplay. And I don't remember how long it was, but it was a lot. I've cut down many an elder wood tree.
Yeah, fair enough. Fair enough.
Yeah.
That's great. But yeah, I like that 30-second synopsis of video games.
Yeah.
That could be fun. That could be something.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I actually just watched before we signed on here. I watched the like newest pitch meeting for Ring of Power, and one of the comments,
Oh,
One
yeah.
one of the comments was like, "I'm glad that they made like that you summarized this 8 hours of terrible TV in 6 minutes."
Yeah.
Like, anyway, yeah. So maybe.
Maybe. I can't remember. There's another thread that was there, but I've lost it now. So we
Well,
can just move on. And it'll
I'm
come back
curious,
at some point.
Nick, because like,
Oh, Greg's got 428 in Skyrim and 306 in the special edition. So he's like us combined.
Respect.
yeah. Shout out, man. That's it. Well, now, like, what is your? I mean, do we want to keep just talking Skyrim? What? If not, I can take this conversation in a different direction. It's up to us all.
Oh, it
World
doesn't matter to me.
oyster.
Let's move. Move on.
All right. So I'm curious. So, like, people out there don't know. Typically, when it comes to D&D ideas scripts, like, usually that involves me calling one of the people in PeakD&D, sometimes someone else, and like hashing out ideas and like talking through things and then like coalescing and writing.
Yeah.
So to that point, Nick, when you're talking about momentum and like keeping the story moving, how would you even begin to like explain and then teach or like to throw those concepts out there in a way that makes sense? Because like I can't even wrap my head around.
But there's also, it's good to ask Dick this for the DM perspective, but it's also just as much the players to keep that ball rolling a little bit.
And that's
so
what I mean, you know me, I would definitely, I'd rather keep it on the players just so they could have some agency.
I mean, especially for like the, what we just filmed yesterday, there was a lot of, Nick continuing to talk in some ways, but also us choosing to move on at some point. There was a lot more gray area of how that was going to move forward. So when do you make that choice to move forward? But yeah, for DMs though, Nick, go for it if you have any thoughts.
Or players.
I mean, off the top of my head, and this is an interesting topic and something that I would be interested in more fully researching myself. But in terms of like engaging the players and keeping the pace moving, it's, I think, a combination of in-game incentivizing certain courses of action so that they remain palatable to the players. It's like, again, going back to the idea of, hey, there's stuff to find in this game we're playing. Just on a very simple nuts and bolts level, players will want to do more stuff if doing stuff is fun and interesting. So just making sure that there's a fun combat or some interesting loot or a piece of the mystery or just something that the players are invested in getting at that moment in time, and putting that in front of them is a way that dungeon masters can encourage their players to help them pace the game well. Which is I hope a coherent thought. I get a bit rambly about this. Max has been on a lot of phone calls with me.
Well, no, I have flashbacks of, I want to say it was the verbal boss fight where talking about the carrot and the stick, right? And how, to me, like keeping those, whether it's the piece of the mystery or the shiny bit of loot or whatever the carrot is, to keep them, it's almost, think of like a side-scrolling video game, as video games have been like a very big part of this conversation.
Sure.
And so like, you always want to keep moving because that's where the mushrooms and the fireball plants are, right? But if you stop moving, like that screen will catch up to you and that stick will kill you. And so like keeping that like window is something that I think DMs certainly can do, but like, at those inflection points where you're trying to get 5 people, 4 people, however big the group of players is, to decide on a single course about like whatever that next step is. Like I don't.
That's a tough one.
Yeah, like I don't know if the DM, like, should DMs be more active in that instance, or like demand a next step, or like is that just to the players to decide themselves? Like that's where that's the juicy bit to chew on for me.
Right. And Greg, I think in chat, had an excellent and succinct response to this in an earlier context when he said, just punish the players with bad stuff when they don't make a decision. And that's also valid.
I mean, I remember back in like middle school, I think the first taste of D&D I had was my friend created kind of its own game. He was an artist, so he asked like any video game character, any like character you wanted to play, what would you do? So he would create it. So I ended up being what he would do and stuff. But we were like in a cave, and like we were just not making decisions. So he would just have rocks fall on people and do damage that were just like not making decisions. So very like, mechanically based, like your character's about to die if you guys don't make decisions, and very middle school based, but there's definitely nuances to make that happen nowadays as far as bad things happening to the players. Doesn't have to be as direct.
Nick, I mean yeah, so like what are your thoughts on that, resident DM? Like what are more less heavy-handed ways to do that?
Yes.
I mean, smacking people with rocks is one thing, but I mean,
it was pretty funny.
It's not always possible for that specific thing to happen. And another thing is to remember is that it doesn't have to literally do damage to do damage.
Exactly.
In the metaphorical sense, right? So like, even if you give the sense that certain opportunities are going to go away, like you could do X, Y, or Z, but you have to do it quickly. or you won't get a chance to do it anymore,
Hmm.
then it becomes a little like, that's not smacking people with rocks, but it's giving them an incentive to decide on a course of action quickly.
Yeah, it's like pulling the scarcity trigger.
Yeah.
Like, hey, this offer is only open for 24 hours.
Right. I only
and if
use
you act
basic
now,
sales techniques for justice and good storytelling. But yeah, you're absolutely right. It's there's a pithy term for this that I forget that's popular in the anti-grifter and MLM video essayist section of YouTube.
I don't even know what that means, but
sorry, just a weird subculture of people who like talking about stuff.
Dude.
Which honestly, same. Clearly.
I mean, it's a big YouTube verse out there, man.
Dude.
Yeah.
It's humongous. My new tactic for this new campaign is, right then, off we go.
bringing us back full circle to
the Frisky
UK Adult
Dingo.
Swim YouTube.
And that part is easier with a group our size, where you have 3 characters. 3 to 5 characters is probably, I think, about the sweet spot for it. Where and you can just quickly reach a consensus, because that's like, if one person says I agree with him, we've got a majority, let's do it.
I feel bad that Ben isn't here, but as much as because I'm going to compliment him now, because as much as like it drove me crazy last night when when he does the impulsive things, it drives me crazy. It is momentum. Like when he sent
that's the truth.
Kevin Quentin into chapter 2, and then as we're exploring last night, I mean, you could. My reaction is very visible, very real on camera.
Fair enough.
But there's a reason that authors write those kinds of characters into stories. Impulsive characters who just do stuff that makes a new thing happen are very narratively useful.
Poke the bear, because it needs to be poked at some point.
and it has an in-game benefit of, hey, guess what? This is happening now. And we all just have to live with that.
See, but it's like, this is like the tactician and the trickster, like, meeting and... I don't know what hybrid that
you were talking more player bait, Max to Ben, not Triss to Kane.
Yes, player versus player as opposed to character. Gotcha. Yes. Although Triss was also kind of irritated. I mean, specifically last night,
I could tell that too.
Not getting caught.
Yeah,
but Triss had a bunch. Man, I was actually thinking about. I wrote about it today. Like how, because we put this on YouTube, right? Like we tried to make this engaging, entertaining, but when like crazy, weird, like fucked up shit happens to your character, like how do you play that? That's still fun and engaging, but like also chewing on the things. And so I was definitely like thinking about all that stuff today.
And also like, from the other player's standpoint, obviously the narration happened, all players heard it, but how do you ask about it, but then also let it go and just assume it'll come up at another point. Like, because I know some players we've played with like would metagame in the sense of like they would know, like,
do you want to name names?
Not necessarily. I mean, I think everyone's done it at some point, but like,
it's an arc we all go through.
But like, acting on something you don't know, but that was narrated. Acting on something your character doesn't know. That was narrated, or
out of
just
game,
just prodding and prodding and prodding and prodding, knowing that something happened, but like the no isn't good enough kind of scenario. So it's also playing that, because I mean, I certainly knew what was up or something was up, but at some point, Mino's got to be like, okay, I don't know what's happening. You clearly don't want to tell me. Now's not the time, and move on. And the same thing of momentum, and not just stand there and
see, now this is useful because that's how you respect people's boundaries.
Yep.
Right? Like, Lord knows when I like, especially if I'm in a conversation with someone I care about who's like suffering or like something that I care about, and like, you run into that like, I don't want to talk about it, or like when, much like Mino, like could tell something was wrong and you just want to like pick at it, like, but what's wrong? Like, I know something's wrong. Like, come on, don't you want to talk about it? And no means no, right? And like, so there is a respecting of boundaries
from a character and a player standpoint. Like, you both iterations of that person have to come to that conclusion at some point.
Yeah. Well, and in real life, like
I suppose
that's a skill too, like off the table, right? Like,
absolutely.
Okay, can I rein in my curiosity so as to like respect where this person is at?
Yeah.
Wow.
It's just, for me personally, it's just a lot easier in real life because I did not hear the narration of what happened. But
true enough.
That doesn't mean that it's easier in real life, generally speaking. But for me, that's certainly where I would draw the easy line of when I hear no in real life, I know something's going on, but I did not hear the narration of what happened.
It'll be fun to see how that all shakes out when we do have that come to Jesus moment about the dream.
Group will start.
We haven't had group yet.
No, but it will. But it'll start.
Maybe
it's a milestone. It'll be a milestone in this campaign,
dude.
Eventually, you're just going to have to get to a place where enough messed up stuff has happened to you that you're going to need to unpack some things.
To your point, though, yes, like extreme and traumatic situations do lead to like quicker developing intimacy. However, like as we kind of hashed out, like these characters, Triss and Kane and Mino, have been like a week. We've known each other for a week.
Yeah, we just
I'm supposed to bare my
days.
soul to this stranger I've known for a week. Like,
yep. Boy, it's been a crazy week for Triss the Majestical, hasn't it?
I mean, all of us, to be fair.
You and me. I don't know what Kane's up to. I don't know if this is just kind of run-of-the-mill whatever travel that he does, but
yeah.
He's a little wild card in that sense, but I mean, I just crawled out of the Underdark, so I'm witnessing all kinds of new crazy things.
Yeah, I mean, this has got to be better than the like miserable life you left, right?
Oh yeah, it's a lot more engaging and things are happening. It's not just same old every day.
Yeah,
but I'm sure Nick is going to have something to do with my backstory and what has gone out in the Underdark at some point.
Oh no, I can't wait till the spotlight gets on you, buddy.
We're going to go fight the Spider Queen or something like that. Who knows? We'll see. We shall see.
We shall indeed. I have some fun ideas.
I figured you might, sir.
I can't wait.
I figured you might.
Well, we'll see. We'll see what happens.
Yeah. Why even? Nah, never mind.
I know. Yeah, it's hard not to talk about it.
Yeah. No,
in the specific sense, but
it's right. Exactly. The curses of being ahead. But I'm proud of us for being ahead. Like that at least gives us a fighting chance of getting to do this as lives change and new things happen.
Absolutely.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So, all right. Digging into this like D&D ideas about like regaining momentum when you have stalled a little bit. Like Tony, we had a conversation in the parking lot. We don't need to get into necessary specifics, but you yourself were talking about how like you feel like you've leveled up a bunch in this last little bit, but that leading up to that, you felt kind of stuck. Yeah. So I'm curious if like what you did, if you can think of anything in the last 7 minutes here on the spot, of like how you regained that momentum, right? Because like ultimately that's sort of what we're talking about in like a micro macro way. So I'm curious.
I mean, the one thing I can think of that's right there in my brain is on the line of decision making, in the sense of someone else made a decision that I had to react to. So which started that ball. Which made me more open to the opportunity when a new job presented itself, not thinking it would have been a job that I would have taken before because it didn't seem interesting to me or work well in my schedule or whatnot. But at that point in time, I was like very open to be like, you know what, I should try it and see what happens. And then that's kind of gotten the ball rolling. But
so Quentin kicked down a door. That's what you're telling me.
Yeah, pretty much. Absolutely. Yeah.
Damn it.
You know, sometimes it moves things forward.
Sometimes it moves things, and yeah, it's moved my life forward a lot in a very good direction. So, very positive direction. But yeah, it probably wouldn't have.
Man, that's great.
happened in that sense of, another party member essentially finally made a decision one way or another that affected me directly. That I had to make choices. Then it's at that point of which way I was going to go.
Yeah. Well, I guess that's so like, analysis paralysis, right? Like essentially that's being stuck in your head, right? So if you are forced to move, like that's a really good way to get out of your head, right? To like get into that.
How
that
do you
space
force yourself to move though without external? That's I suppose one. That's kind of the crutch then too, right?
Or how do you force a group of people to move when there's no real external? Interesting.
I mean, because that's the goal. That's the goal, right? To be able to notice that you're in a divot or you're in a funk, and move yourself, and not have to wait for someone else to decide or put that pressure on you.
Yeah,
that's I in my opinion, that's the ideal, is not to have something externally be able to have to do that. It's more of on yourself. You're able to do that on your own.
Well, yeah, because I mean, there's right. Are you like at the mercy of the seas and the direction they are taking you, or do you actually have a sail so you can like catch the winds and orient? Right? Because if you're always just being like buffeted by circumstances and allowing that to carry you, you're going to end up wherever the circumstances want you to end up. So it's like hard to be intentional, right? Whereas if you can,
harness
these points
the changes,
right, and like take a step in a direction that's more in line with where you want to go.
But yeah.
Interesting.
Indeed.
Yeah.
Right then.
I don't know.
Off we go.
Yeah, right. Exactly. There you go. we kill face it to a conclusion. I'll be curious if that. Yeah, I was thinking about writing a script at some point this month, so I'll be curious if that's what it ends up being, or what direction.
Yeah, momentum. Yeah.
Well, clearly it's fun to contemplate.
Yes, it is.
Yeah, no, I mean that's usually how that all comes up. It's like, oh, what ideas have I been chewing on? But I do think the sessions here, and I would like to do another script that has more like real world implications, just because the last couple have been very much like how to have more fun in your game, which is also rad, but I do like applying it to real life.
D&D Ideas pacing, right? Like you've done a couple D&D centric, so now blow it up a little bit to a little more abstract, worldly reality. Yeah,
get a little weird.
Get a little weird.
But it's good. No, I think the session 0 video will come out well. I like where that started, so I'm excited to see what Ben does with it.
Yeah,
and
I think so too. And just after we conversed before you left on your trip too, of that third take and you guys playing around with,
we'll see
deliveries of sorts. Like there was enough time to make that decision if Ben wanted to take that on. So that's why I asked him.
Maybe.
We'll see. We'll see.
Yeah, we will see.
I gave him the option and he took it. So that was more of, I was ready to do it, but I just gave him the option if he wanted to do it.
See, here's the thing. Ben is a puppy dog and he will always say yes.
So
even if he has no understand, like even if he is like one hit point left and like, what, charge the fort, you got it, man. Yeah, there's that.
That's fair.
And I am really feeling like, Will, I don't know if you ever watch these live streams, man, but thank you so much, dude. Those PDFs that you've been coming up with and the art and stuff is rad. And I don't know if anyone actually uses them or downloads them, but I think they're cool. And thank you.
Indeed. I've seen a few. They're pretty awesome. You should go download them.
Yeah. No, I dig
all
it.
of you out there.
The new one, this new one, because it's all about like cooking breakfast for session 0. And so this one is like sort of like a recipe card.
Nice.
For how you do a session 0.
Cayenne pepper.
I mean, if that's the spice you want to use, but like it's all about making it yours, man. That's the spice step.
That is my spice of choice.
Yeah.
In almost all my cooking.
Okay, I got you, man. I have a good buddy of mine.
Makes it somewhere in there.
cumin is like one of my good friends
Oh,
go
okay.
to. Like egg. I mean, I know you don't get down with eggs, Tony, but like a little bit of cumin in the eggs. That's a trick of one of my friends. Yeah.
Cumin.
Yes.
Cumin.
Yes. Any final thoughts before we get out of here and
Yeah, it's been
go
an
about
hour,
our
man.
days?
Final thoughts.
Stories matter.
I would
Yeah.
concur.
I,
Stories matter.
that's not apropos of nothing in particular. That's a thought I'll share with the world right now.
And I think
Stories matter.
pretty much tied into everything that we talked about today.
Yeah.
Stories matter. Frisky
Yeah.
Dingo, I'm not sure about its story, but man, I love it.
Yeah, that story's. Yeah.
It's all over the place.
It is a little Baldur's
All
Gate.
stories.
Yeah. Well, and
Fair
so
enough.
and not only the story, but and the stories you tell yourself also matter. And yeah.
My final thought would be strive to be more decisive, because then it leads to more momentum forward. One way or the other.
Yeah, man. No, there definitely gets to a point where any step is the right step. if you haven't been if you haven't taken one in a long time, oftentimes a step in any direction.
Try to take
just
one,
like,
man.
Yeah, just move and respond.
Yep.
Can help.
Yep.
Absolutely.
Word.
So
Well, thank you everyone for tuning in to this live stream. Thanks for the questions, Greg. Tony, Nick, thank you for your time. Thank you for being here. This would be a lot less fun if I were by myself.
or if I were by myself.
Yeah. And Nick, thank you your birds too. For their,
Oh, of course.
The birds.
Wonderful.
My beautiful asshole pets. I love them.
What are the birds' names?
Cheeky and Yona.
Cheeky and Yona. I feel like I should have known that, but
I always
mostly
forget that
call
you
them
have
my
birds, to be
asshole
honest.
birds much of the time.
Well,
Okay, good.
on the note of asshole birds, PeakD&D is out for now. We'll see you next week with another episode.
Take care.